All right, all right. Welcome, everyone. I think we're gonna give it a few minutes, let everyone join. Happy Tuesday, happy spring. I hope it's getting nice and warm all over the country. I'm out here in Utah, so is a few of our panelists today. You'll have an opportunity to meet them in a second. It snowed here yesterday, so I am craving the warm weather that some of you are having. But welcome into today's webinar. We'll give it one more minute, let everyone join. We'll go ahead and kick off. Um, and I think everyone comes in on mute. If you have any questions throughout the event, you can go ahead and chat in. Questions, we'll have an open Q&A session at the end. And Alex, are we ready to kick off?
I'd say so. I think we can get the show started. We're a minute on 2 minutes on the hour, so yeah, let's hit the ground running.
Okay, sounds good. Well, welcome everyone to today's CMO Peer Talks, hosted by Promo Republic. We're very excited to be here today. There's four of us. You'll meet Amy, Ben, and Christian, two good friends of mine, and a few good friends of mine, and experts in marketing. We could probably talk for hours, so we'll probably jump right into it. Today, we'll be talking about franchise customer acquisition 2.0. So what's happening now in customer acquisition, smarter plays for bigger local wins. So for those of you that don't know, this is our CMO Peer Talks community. I've been a part of this for a few years, I think. They host wonderful events, incredible content, bringing like-minded people together. I believe they're doing about a monthly webinar, sometimes two a month. And they'll be coming out with their content calendar and keeping you guys updated regularly on all that great information. If you guys want to join, if you're not already in, go ahead and scan this code now. But forward this to any peers or friends that you might have that would find this content really helpful. We're going to go ahead and kick off. Like I mentioned, there's four of us on today. I am your moderator, Lindsay Simpson. For those of you who don't know, I have about 20 years of experience in marketing and communications. Most of my career actually has not been in franchise brands. I worked in the active and lifestyle industries with active.com, Backcountry, for those of you know, and worked for a small company called Adobe out here in Salt Lake, but fell in love with franchising when I came on board with Athletic Republic, which is an 80 unit sports performance training franchise in the youth fitness industry. I'm now the CMO of The Dog Wizard, which I absolutely love. And all we do is market pets and mobile pet training with over 100 units and growing rapidly. I also consult for other franchise brands like Show Homes and Aldea Home and Baby. I'm incredibly excited to be here, like I mentioned, with some experts that I look up to. Our first is Ben. Ben, I'm going to pass it to you for a quick introduction. But for those of you that don't know, Ben comes from Five Star Franchising Platform. That's a home services brands like Bio One, Five Star Bath Solution, Mosquito Shields, and many more. He also worked for a small company called PepsiCo or Frito-Lay, for those of you who don't know. And he has decades of experience. He's a master in customer experience. He's a Utah native, like I am, a proud dad, and I'm excited to introduce you to Ben Fox.
Wow. Lindsay, I need to do this more often. You make me feel good. But yeah, excited to be here. Just a couple nuances about five-star franchising. We're a platform, a growing platform. We currently have six brands with two customer experience brands, an in-house marketing agency, and a call center company called ProNexus. And I think the thing that makes us unique in the space, right? In home services, there's multiple platforms. It's kind of a trend. The thing that makes us unique is that we've invested heavily on customer experience because we feel like it's a competitive advantage for our owners, and it's a very challenging problem to solve. So I oversee all of that for Five Star. It's a very challenging uh, problem to solve, but nonetheless, I'm excited to be here and excited to hear from the other panelists as well.
I love it, Ben. I bet you're like me. The reason I love customer experience like you or marketing is that it's always changing and it's always a challenge. And I think we're all humble enough to know we don't have it figured out. And what keeps us on the edge of our seats is that things change every single day.
Absolutely.
Well, with me as well is Amy. Amy, we're very excited to have you. Amy's a longtime veteran franchise marketing executive. She was previously with Basecamp Franchising, which is also a platform brand with two like secondhand retail stores, Kid to Kid and Uptown Cheapskate, also here in Utah. But she's a snowbird that goes back and forth to Arizona. She's the CEO of Loaf Green Marketing and the marketing director of Aquatot Swim School. And Amy, it's such a pleasure to have you. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I have been in love with franchising since the very first day I walked into the Kid to Kid store in 2012. The founder had hired me to be her assistant. I'd had professional jobs and then I had retired out of the career world to raise 6 children. And when the economy changed and I needed to go back to work, she took a chance with me and fell in love with franchising, fell in love with the brands. And it was during my time working at Aquatots that I realized that the things I understood about marketing really crossed over to all type of franchising. And so that's when I decided I wanted to go out on my own. I still do some consulting with Aquatots, but Loft Green Marketing allows me to be able to keep my my marketing hat on, which I had loved so much at Basecamp. But I have also opened a store, and it has been really eye-opening to go from being the marketer to being the store owner, and has really given me some insights that I thought I already knew in a whole new perspective.
I love it. You've had all the hats. You've had franchisor and platform and franchisee and even consulting. So you've been on the supplier side as well.
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's fantastic. All right. Well, last but certainly not least is my friend Christian. Christian, thanks for being here today. Christian has about 15 years background in corporate marketing and PR. He is with Voda, which is Voda Cleaning and Restoration. That's his 8th franchise brand, you guys. So Christian comes very well experienced in franchising. He was previously at Anytime Fitness. He serves as the CMO, but they also have a franchise portfolio brand called Franchise Playbook, which is of home services brands as well. And he is my ski buddy when he came out here to Park City, Utah. He's a great dad and he's an overall cool dude. Christian, you say hi to the folks.
Hi everybody. Thanks for having me. Franchising has been kind of my everything for a long time. Like many of franchisees in our systems, they kind of quit the corporate rat race to go into starting their own business, and franchising was just a place that I kind of landed after spending time with brands like Best Buy, Thomson Reuters, Securian Financial. And like Lindsay, starting with a small company called Adobe, I started with a small franchise called Anytime Fitness. At the time, I think we're about 3,200 domestic locations. And then really moved on to startup franchises where I went from Anytime to a pet grooming franchise that had 0 units, and really fell in love with kind of the building of early systems. And then moved on to going back to fitness before starting my own entrepreneurial journey, and then joined Voda and got to build a brand from scratch, which for most marketers is a dream to name and launch a franchise brand. And since 2023, we've been lucky to award over 220 territories in 28 states to 90 amazing owners. So I'm very excited to have Voda as one of the fastest growing home service franchises in the country.
I love that. Thank you so much, Christian. We have a great agenda for you guys today, and I like all of the speakers today. I think we're incredibly passionate about franchising, and Amy said it perfectly earlier. It doesn't really matter the brand or the industry. All the problems seem to be the same, and we can just kind of plug in best practices, and that's what a community like this is all about, is sharing best practices. And so I love coming together on topics like this. We have a great agenda set up for us. We're going to cover 4 different questions about customer acquisition. The first, kind of where have things evolved in the recent years? What are important factors when it comes to customer acquisition? What strategies that our panelists are currently executing right now for customer acquisition? And then always my favorite question, which is what mistakes have you made? Because I think if we can share mistakes, that is the best way to learn from them and then share them with our peers. But before we get going, Alex, can I pass the mic to you to say a few words about Promo Republic?
Lindsay, thank you so much. Quick introduction to myself for those who have yet to meet me. My name's Alex Harbinyoff. I'm the Senior Marketing Consultant at Promo Republic. Been in franchising for 6 years now, so drinking from a fire hose every single day, and I'm absolutely phenomenally excited for the opportunity to learn today. For those who have yet to kind of encounter and meet who Promo Republic is, we're a marketing tech platform built specifically for franchise systems and multi-location business brands. We're currently supporting a little bit over 100 franchise systems and platform brands as well that have a consolidation of many banners and brands within their ecosystems to really help and create uniformity and centralization of data, give them the needed insights to really evolve every single day their local marketing and customer experience practices, and really kind of deliver a go-to center for managing local social, reviews, and search. If your brand is currently doing an overview and checking what partners you have currently in place, or if there's any specific challenges you're facing when it comes to local digital marketing, let's connect for a quick understanding of where Promo Republic can come in to help uproot those issues that you're having. I'll share my contact details in the chat below. With no further ado, let's pass the stage back over to Lindsay and let's get rolling.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. All right, let's go ahead and get kicked off with our first question. A lot has happened in customer acquisition, and a lot has happened in the industry and in the world. We had, COVID, we had an election, we had an Olympics, we had economics fluctuation. There's just been a lot going on. So what has evolved in the recent years? What no longer works? What's going on? What are you guys seeing in the landscape? Amy, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yes, I think that you have to kind of jump back to 2022 to really understand, at least from my perspective, how all of the changes have happened. When TikTok superseded Google for the first time as being the top search engine back in 2022, Google started making changes every month. Before then, you could just go to the conference in the early part of the year. You'd know what you're going to do that year and everything would be lovely. And then after that, I feel like it has been mayhem. And so being able to stay up on top of it, and you have to be willing to try things because the experts often don't know what to tell you. And so one of the things I think is really powerful in franchising is that you can try some things out with your early adopter stores, and you can really know things before the experts can start telling you. And that was really beautiful when I recognized that. Thankfully, I'd recognized in 2019 the power of that at one of the social media conferences I go to. They were saying, we kind of think this and kind of think this. I'm like, oh my goodness, no, I've experienced it because of as many locations throughout the country that I could see. So really being willing to understand how AI has changed the world and the way search happens through AI. It's starting back in 2022 and then all of the changes. So finding a way for AI to find what you're writing to be most important is now the new holy grail. At least that's my belief. And it's always fun and exciting to be moving into the next new challenge. But if you think that what you were doing last year is working, it probably isn't. And yeah.
That's a great point. I love that you mentioned that creating a beta group or a pilot group within, whether it's your franchise advisory committee or a group of marketing advisors that are willing to try things out and be nimble with you. I think that's a great idea. Ben, what are you seeing at 5-star?
Yeah, Amy's census or summary of what's happened is I feel like spot on. It's a little disheartening. It's a little like it's almost like the uncertainty is overwhelming in all aspects of marketing. AI is gonna shake things up from a content standpoint. Google algorithmic updates have just rocked the home services world, right? It's really tossed uh, I don't know. It's done something really tough to the business because it is evolving really quickly. Google Business Profile rules have changes, ad costs have gone up. It's like a perfect storm of change, and trying to stay above it is really challenging. It's forced us, Five Star has over 1,000 franchisees in 6 unique businesses. So it is really difficult to replicate some of the wins that we're seeing in certain brands to others because they're so different. But it has forced us to, almost like a refiner's fire, to really get uh, more focused and intentional about what we're doing. And what that has looked like is, Amy talked about pilots and testing through things. We have done the same thing. We've set up testing groups within each brand and have had a much more focused approach with data driving our decisions versus the anecdotal warm and fuzzy feeling or lack thereof with a franchise owner. So we've had to rely on partnerships with like HubSpot, for example, or our various CRMs, and let the story be told through the data. And so that's been incredibly important for us. With one example of one of our brands, Bath Solutions is a very um, so it's in a business that we can buy a lot of leads from all these different lead aggregators. And that has been really helpful to weather the storm, right? We're relying on the expertise of Angie's List and Thumbtack and Home Advisor and all these players to really drive the business. It comes with a risk, right? You're outsourcing your marketing to somebody who has a competitive that they're going to sell those leads elsewhere as well. And so you're not building for the long term. But it's what we've been able to do with that is continue to grow while also building out that capability in house with additional different lead sources, branded lead sources, branded campaigns that really are starting to build the Bath brand in the local market versus white label. They don't know who they're going to get until we call them, and then they find out it's from Bath Solutions. So trying to in short, trying to focus on what's working, what to buy you time to try to weather all the change is what we've been trying to do at Five Star.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And Christian, you were talking about the same thing when we were chatting before. This dependency on third parties and a lot of people trying to take things in-house to try to minimize the fluctuation. Christian, are you seeing something similar, or how have things changed for you guys?
Yeah, I'll come from it from kind of a paid media perspective. I spent half my career in media strategy and execution and campaign management and analytics. So I think one of the things with regard to customer acquisition that's evolving for us is that we've moved on from like the spray and pray national brand campaigns to hyper local intent-driven marketing powered by data and automation. Ben talked about HubSpot and the countless other CRMs out there. But I think the bigger shift that we've seen, especially being in home services, is that, and it's hard to stomach as a brand, that ultimately what we say is much less important than the social proof and what your customers tell other customers. So the trust has shifted, and people's reliance on local reviews, social proof, and even Google Maps is now putting Google as the new storefront, and the reviews are the new word of mouth. And so I think when you think about customer acquisition, it's no longer about reach, it's about trust, timing, and where you're providing value in the right place at the right time. And acquisition almost is bottom up now, whereas before, national ads would drive awareness and locations would fulfill that demand that it creates. Now, Google reviews, social proof, and proximity are the new currency driving up the funnel versus down the funnel. That's kind of one of the biggest things we've seen.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. And I think it's spot on. I worked in the sports industry, and what I saw pre-COVID was that so many of my franchisees were fully dependent on grassroots. boots on the ground, grassroots, and very little to digital advertising. We made this huge shift to educate and launch digital advertising campaigns, and actually saw us swing the pendulum all the way to the other side. Whereas, 2020, where we couldn't be in person, we were too highly dependent on paid advertising. For, 3 or 4 years, that's all our franchisees were doing. So I think what we're seeing now trend-wise is in 2025, we're trying to find a balance, the right hybrid between offline and online, the right combination of grassroots and boots on the ground, and how that connects with the digital infrastructure. So for us, finding a hybrid approach and making sure we're investing in all channels is kind of what I've seen in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years.
Lindsay, I'll add on to what Christian was saying as well. Like for us, we've had to get more, basically pour more fuel on the fire with the old tricks, like SEO, for example. It is very, Christian was talking about local sentiment, customer referrals. Your reputation in the local market is more important than it ever has been. I feel like the old like SEO tactics that are kind of vanilla. It was formulaic, and there was just kind of a recipe that you did and tried to manage that across the entire franchise system. It's not nearly as effective as it once was. Everybody is doing the same thing, and so how do you stand out? What we've done, and we do have an in-house agency that supports a couple of our brands, but we work with outside partners as well to push a more like curated approach for our SEO tactics. It is more expensive. It's far more expensive, but we found that that expense is driving positive return on the investment. And so it does come.
Hopefully we'll get him back.
Okay, thought it was me. Ben is currently paused. At least his camera is.
While we wait for him, I'll stop talking as soon as he comes back, because I want to know exactly what he was saying there. I have my demographics. I've had the luxury of a demographic. So, oh, he's back.
I mean, I was rifting. Like there was some gold there, guys. Real gold.
You missed it.
You missed it. I was just gonna, high level, I was saying old tactics like vanilla approach within franchising, you kind of resort to that because how do you manage 150 different franchise locations? You kind of systemize. I don't think that works as well today.
Yeah.
And so paying more often will produce better results. At least it has with us in certain marketing channels. SEO, for example, more consult or a more curated approach, which is just frankly more expensive because it takes a more local presence and local touch, owner involvement with it. That has worked for us. And
Yeah.
we're seeing positive return on investment with that. So you don't want to run into that without testing into it. You want data to drive that it actually is working, that the increased investment is worth it. But to what Christian was saying, that in local reputation and building that through SEO tactics is one example where we've seen it work.
I love the idea that the funnel is flipped, Christian. Like it's not top down anymore.
It's a completely different funnel. With the switch in 2022, and Google now putting so much emphasis on what your social is doing, being able to really figure out how to get the story told correctly in a very local way socially, I feel like is one of the best ways to be able to improve the SEO that actually is affecting your website and your Google space. And so trying to figure out a way to have franchisees do a united and yet make it really local, I feel like is really the big challenge. I've done a lot of testing on the things that were just produced, branded. And if you do all branded everything, you're going to just quietly sink because people really want to have the experience of what they're going to have when they walk in the doors of the business. And so really I have felt like a big part of being a franchise marketer, and on the consultant side, or when I was heading up departments, is training that franchisee to be able to do the parts that they need to be able to do, just like you train them in everything else operationally. And so marketing for me looks very much like an operational marketing training session for any small business that I am working with. Because that is where I really found the results. I used to be able to, Promo Republic, way back in 2019, I met with them and said, this is my dream of what, I don't see anything in this system right now. This is my dream. And you will always hear me talk about how much I love them, because any platform that listens to you and then actually builds in things that you recommend, I don't think that this platform is from my vision, but they had their engineers multiple times on multiple hour calls listening to me. And so the things I wanted are part of the things that are in this beautiful system that they have. But being able to make it so that there can be some drag and drop features that can elevate what is being done with the pictures and the videos that are being made by the local is a game changer. And it's a game changer for the SEO also. One of the hacks that I have really loved doing is if I walk into a franchise and they still have identical things written for their Google on every single page, you know that you can combine them. And thankfully, AI is out there. So whatever form of AI you're working with, a call with the local franchisee to find out about their story and about where their four walls sit, and any other really pertinent things about what makes them unique, combined with the knowledge that you've already gathered up. I'll spend about a 2-week period of time building out my AI prompting for a brand so that I've got a branded space to work in. And then that really can make those unique spaces. And I have paid a lot of money with brands I've worked with to have their experts do it. And I don't think the experts know. That's why I was saying everything's changed so much. And so digging in and doing it yourself, you see what's working better and faster on its own. And that connects with that social that you're teaching them how to do.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a perfect tee up. The idea of having national guidance, but localization is so important. And then having partners that have the right tools, whether it's AI or a software, to be able to take local creative and execute for acquisition tactics. I think that's key, Amy. You were spot on. But let's talk more about the factors. What factors do we need to consider for local acquisition? Christian, do you want to start on this one?
Sure. Yeah, I think, you know, the game has changed, but there are some elements that are very similar to what we used to do. You know, the local trust building, we preach and give playbooks and everything to our franchisees about how to get reviews, how to ask for the review in person, how to follow up, being part of visible neighborhood Facebook groups, and really building partnerships with those community connectors. For us, it's property managers and plumbers and realtors and other business owners. But beyond that, I think it really comes down to like the first 90 days of a new location and how critical it is. You have to earn awareness, you have to build trust, and you have to drive repeat behavior fast. Like I like to say that ultimately, you know, when you're working with customers, your CRM should almost be the place that remembers what your customer forgot and follows up with you before they even have to think twice. And so we built infrastructure in our marketing technology stack to enable our franchisees to do the things that we want them to, that maybe they won't or can't do themselves, to really build out that customer journey that fulfills what customers expect. We're all customers on this call, and the joke is as franchisees open their businesses, they don't question their accountants, they don't question their lawyers, but they all become CMOs. they all have opinions on marketing. And so when you think about that, it really does it really does influence kind of those first 90 days, and it really needs to combine both the digital visibility, the SEO, the LSA, the Google Maps with the physical visibility of their markets, or what they're doing in their markets, like yard signs, the truck wrap, networking, and that physical and digital marketing have to play hand in hand, because that's where the success we've seen with folks that are getting up and running. You don't get a second chance to make a local first impression. Your first grand opening is your only grand opening. And so we help them along with making a splash in those first 90 days and get up and running in a cost-effective and productive way.
That's great. And it sounds like teaching them as well, because sometimes it doesn't come as natural. But you're right, everyone believes they're marketers. I wouldn't dare cross my accountant. There's no way I play in that space. Ben, what factors are you guys seeing?
I thought Christian did a great job. He took a lot of my thoughts as well. One thing I would say is it's incredibly important. You know, I think the tactics to attract the first customer are a lot of the time very similar to what we're all doing, but you really have to do a good job of ops and marketing being in lockstep. That first interaction with the technician, in our business it's a technician, right, is going to either bolster all of the work that's been done up until that point, or it's going to just go out the window because it was a poor interaction. And so the ops team working with the marketing team is, I would say, the other part of this that's really, really important. That from a technician standpoint, they're coming in and smiling, you know, all the things that a systemized brand is supposed to bring to the market, that they're fulfilling on that, because first interaction is all the way through until they take the credit card after the service is done. That's when you finally are done with the first interaction. So considering all those aspects, I think, is an important part of the journey.
I think that's a great point. And as marketers, we believe in the brand promise, and we're advertising the brand promise. And so to your point, carrying that all the way through to every single staff member that's going to touch that customer in one way or another to deliver on that original brand promise, that's where conversion happens. Amy, anything else to add on this?
Christian, I absolutely agree with you that it is that promise. I believe that it goes even past when you have made that payment. I'm a big believer in having a text that goes out immediately after, so that you get to hear about the mistakes, or you can invite them to leave a review if they don't have any mistakes that have gone. Now that I'm an owner, I'm in the thick of answering those always, but it is so much better to find out the things that are not running as smoothly as you think from a customer immediately. And you can change a lot of people who had not a good experience into a super fan by the way you listen to what they do and you make the change and they know you made the change. That means a lot. People are savvy to marketing now. So many people during 2020 opened their own business, and that made them see the backside of marketing. And so it makes them resent marketing that isn't actually from the heart and from the soul. And so we as marketers have to be better at making sure that promise is a promise that works in that location, that you're not making the brand promise that you hope for everybody, but everybody can't do it. That you have to be aware that you have to make some concessions sometimes, because a franchise can't have everybody open up at the same level. Unfortunately, you've got some quick starts and some that are a little bit slower to be able to get there. But that reaching out to them afterwards, I feel like, is as important as any of the reach out that you've done before. And hopefully they already know your face because you've been on the social media, they know your name. And so when they see the text come back and it's got your name, and I will often put my telephone number so that they can then call me back directly if they want to be able to have a conversation, hoping to just build a community that's a real community. I'm just in the resale space, but I know as a person who has to hire people to fix things in my home or in my business, how much more I'm looking to build that type of trust with the type of services that you are providing. So really just feeling like that person knows me, loves me. They know my kids. My favorite auto shop is way too far away from me. Their pricing isn't better than the pricing of all the ones that I pass. But they periodically send me a text and ask me about how this kid is doing and that kid is doing, and just checking in on my very old cars. I used to have 6 kids at home, which makes you willing to really drive old things. So I believe that it matters not just on the resale side, but I've been surprised at how much it helps and makes a difference, even in the space that I'm in.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think people are craving human interaction. I think with all the data and automation that's happening in the world right now, we can spot it really easily. And we want a handwritten note. We want someone to ask how our day was, or how our kid or our dog was. So I love that. Thank you, Amy. All right, let's move on. Ben, I'm going to start with you because you spoke about this at the very beginning, which is the things we used to do to help our brand scale aren't quite working any longer. So are there tactics, are there strategies that are helping the brand scale right now? And to your point, is it cost effective, or should we just buck up and invest the money to do things that help us scale?
Well, like Amy makes a great point with that follow-up interaction and communication is critical. Can you do that through technology? It's a balance, right? While not losing the authenticity and the touch, right? I think you can. I think you have to in order to scale some of the. Am I cutting out again? No.
No, you're good.
You guys just were holding really still, and so I was cutting out. But I think you need to balance layering in technology that helps allow franchise owners to do more, while also keeping the authenticity and the relationship, the real relationship that they have to have with their customer. That's I am looking for a new lawn guy because we've had some issues in our lawn and he's MIA. Like he's it's just not what I've asked. I'm texting him and he's not really providing a solution. And that is, he's going to lose a customer that he's had for like 4 or 5 years because he's not working with me, to Amy's point. So I think technology has a huge place to play in that. And I don't say that just as a self-serving, owning a call center, contact center business. I do think owners have a ton going on. We hear it in our surveys that we give out to the owners to get feedback from them. And so enabling them with technology on the various customer journey points is critical. They should be responding. They should be involved. But yeah, I think you have to leverage the tech that's available.
Yeah, it's a great.
I agree. I don't do it alone. When I have things that have come in that are answers that I feel like it needs to be me, I jump in on those. So I watch it, but I've got AI working, and I've got technology that sends all those texts out automatically for me.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good hybrid approach, Amy. Anything else to add, Amy?
It's just making sure that you have built consistency in who you really are locally. I just can't stress that enough, that long before you have that grand opening, they feel like they already know what you're about, who you are, and being able to continue that. For the last month, I've not been in my store, and I watch. I would think that only the young people's faces would be what is needed, but I can see things drop because they're just used to seeing the old lady in the space. And everywhere has a place for video now, so that you can be spreading that along everywhere. So trying to figure out how to get that, make sure you've got all of the best practices happening. So you've got the captions, so that the AI is being able to follow along all of the things. It all just bleeds together.
Yeah, that's so true. Christian, what are you seeing at Voda? Anything that's helping you guys scale?
Yeah, I mean, as a, as a brand that, launched just over 2 years ago, very much still, laying the foundation of what, will be a much bigger brand in the future. But it's really the approach of thinking about it like a national framework with a local execution. Like, the marketing automation things that we do don't replace our local owner. Like it amplifies them. And if in most cases it helps them get the same result without having to do it themselves. And so this idea of centralized technology and local relationships, like at the corporate or at the home office level, we deploy national SEO and paid media and automation, but give the franchisees tools to plug in local content, reviews, and referral partnerships. So instead of having such a rigid, marketing plan where you just do it exactly the way we say, we want to inject the thinking that our owners have. They know more about their territories than anybody else in our organization. So allowing them to plug into farmers markets and 5Ks and home shows and things like that they know will move the needle from a awareness standpoint. But I think really we've talked about technology and building the ways to nurture those leads. The idea that a lead that doesn't convert immediately in that transaction isn't a failed lead. It just might need a little bit more nurturing. So putting that into the machine and allowing for customers to gain those messages from our individual franchisees that are localized and not like so templated that it looks like it's coming from the mothership. Because ultimately, we were talking about this in the last question, like retention starts on day one. Like the follow-up text, the thank you emails, all of that really is allowing us to be speed to lead, but speed to wow. If you don't call your customer within 5 minutes and you delight them within 5, somebody else will. And so that's really where, and Ben knows, like especially in home services, everything is speed to lead. People aren't going to wait around for a form to be called back on when they have 3 feet of water in their basement. So on the restoration side for us, it's sometimes do or die for our customers. So we have to answer those phones on the first ring.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring us home here with asking each of you guys for a mistake you've seen. Not necessarily your brand, maybe, but maybe a previous brand or brands around you. I'll just kick us off here. One of the biggest mistakes I'm seeing right now across multiple brands is the dependency on last click attribution. I think we have done such a good job with data and creating KPI dashboards for our franchisees and empowering them with numbers. But the challenge is if we don't have a full funnel view of our marketing channels, the franchisees often get lost in what was the last channel to create the click to get my lead. And then what happens is the franchisee says, well, my Meta advertising or my Google PPC is the only thing that's working. Therefore, I'm going to put 100% of my local marketing investment in that one channel. And I think that's such a mistake where, us as marketers, we know that omni-channel approach is more effective, and that the more times we touch a customer, typically it takes anywhere from 8 to 10 times to touch a customer for them to finally make a decision. And it might start farther down in the funnel, like looking for reviews or, looking at customer trust. And so I want us to get out of the bad habit of looking at last click attribution and look at a more full funnel attribution. And so investing in the data and the KPI dashboards that give you the right data to make intelligent marketing decisions is what I would recommend. Amy, do you want to kick us off here? Any mistakes?
Yes, and I'm so glad you said that, because we haven't really talked about that at all, and that is one of the most hard and frustrating things to kind of convince people. Having software that shows the many times that they have touched, I feel like is really important, and helping them understand that since 2020 and people started their own businesses, they purposely break the funnel. So if you aren't being able to see that they were in your social media before they went directly to Google to get to you, then you don't have the story. So having software that really can follow them from the first time they've clicked in, so you can see, look, for 6 weeks, they've been playing around in this brand and they got to you by going only to your website, and it looks like they break it on purpose because they don't like being followed. So I feel like that's important, which was not what I was going to point out. I feel like the most common thing I see with the multiple brands that I've worked with since I've gone out on my own is the marketing team has come from corporate. And so they have a vision that they can do what they did in corporate and it's going to work in franchising. And they have forgotten that there is another customer and their customer is the franchisee. And so often they forget to market their marketing to the franchisee. They want people to expect them to know that they're an expert and just do what needs to be done. But what they're an expert in is convincing their customer. And so if you have not convinced them, they're not convinced that you know how to convince their customer. And so you lose that reputation and authority accidentally by trying to treat them like they are corporate, because they're not. They are a customer, and this is the first place. And so just creating a layer of that every time you make a campaign, you make your campaign, and then you make a campaign for your campaign, and know that franchisees take about 6 months to adopt something well if they're early adopters. And so if you really have a vision of doing marketing in a different way than it was before, that there's a whole campaign that you should be doing for that, which includes getting early adopters that have done it ahead of time. So you've got data. Franchisees, the big way to win them is with the data. And so building that, it's hard to get the CEO on board sometimes, but building that length of vision so that you are going to that annual meeting with data, pre-proving what you're asking, the hard new thing for them. They're willing to spend money and do new things that they've never done. If you've got some data and you've just taken the time to show them that you can be convincing as a marketer because you've convinced them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Ben, what mistake have you seen?
Well, I was gonna chime on what Amy is saying. It's along the lines of, to gain a new customer costs like 7 times the cost of keeping an existing one. It's the same kind of analogy with trust with the franchise owner, right? When you're implementing a new program or tactic, you cannot afford to ram it down their throat or do it improperly. You will lose the trust and credibility, and it's going to just cost the brand forward progress for a long time. It takes a long time to gain back that trust. And so, to what Amy said, you have to have a campaign built out. You have to lead them along, show them the why. You have to educate. Last point of attribution, right? That leads people down the wrong channel all the time. You got to have a real strong tactic around educating and training around the why we're doing this and helping them see the vision, and then show them the data of why it's working and why they should get on board. We've made that mistake as we've brought brands into the platform and seen the dysfunction or the inefficiencies and tried to plug them into our system. We've done it too quickly in some cases. We've done it poorly executing in some cases. The change management hasn't gone well, and we're building from behind. We're trying to play catch up with getting that trust and credibility back, and it creates a real challenge. So to what Amy said, I would say that's critical. Don't make that mistake by trying to move too fast or ram it down anybody's throat. Bring them along in the process.
Great point. Christian, what have you seen?
Yeah, just across my experience in franchising, I've seen a couple different things. One, like assuming that national brand awareness equals local demand. The strategy has to be that national advertising, national marketing plays a role in pushing down value, but at the local level, it's much more important to equip the franchisees with toolkits for success with the local lead gen, like networking, reviews, LSA optimization, local SEO, and easy to execute playbooks. I mean, I think it's one thing to stand on stage at a conference and say, hey, this is our roadmap, this is what we're doing. and then leave them to kind of like figure out how to do it themselves. And so I think that's really important, that the brand awareness is a spark, but the local execution is the fire. So coupling what you want to do at the national level and make it personalized at the local level, so that it doesn't feel, again, templated, where customers, can't really tell the difference of whether you're a franchise or not. Like, that's where you're winning, and you're making it hyper local. And I think the last thing is, the fastest way to waste money is to advertise before you're ready to convert. And so that's why we make sure all of our franchisees are ready to go. And in most cases now, they're coming into Voda University, which is our in-person training before they go live in their markets, and they have appointments and bookings already before they even graduate. And so, but in order to get there, you have to have the infrastructure, the training, the team, and more importantly, the right franchisees that come into the system in order to make that come to life. Because your franchisees aren't just operators; they're your marketers, they're connectors, they're community leaders. And digital only works when the physical relationship-based marketing is also happening on full blast, especially in home services, in the service space.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And just to wrap up today's conversation, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about technology, we talked about AI, we've talked about localization, taking national templates and localizing. I think kind of the consensus from all of us is to be able to have a human element in all of our local marketing acquisition strategies, and not get so caught up in automation. We can have tools and automations to help assist our franchisees, but be able to unplug that and add the localization. And that's really going to create the relationship. It's going to create the referral. It's going to create the reputation for the brand. And so I think that we've covered, some really great content here. I think I'm going to wrap up and open it up to Q&A. But before I do, Amy, Ben, or Christian, have we missed anything? Is anything you guys want to add before we wrap up today?
We could talk about this forever. So
I
that's
know.
not a question.
It's like the start of a bad joke. 4 marketers walk into a bar. They talk about acquisition for 7 hours.
And they're no closer to solving the problem.
Yes, exactly. Well, Alex and Katie, curious if any questions have come in on the chat, but maybe we open it up to Q&A here.
So far, no questions. Now would be the time. If anybody in the audience has a question, do
I'm
not
so
be
glad,
afraid.
because I do have questions. Opening up 2,300 or whatever the ginormous number of the exercise places. I would love to know what you do to get awareness for those grand openings. I feel like I've never worked in a brand that has more than 300. And so on any given year, I've never had more than 20. And I just know how much you learn from numbers. So I would love any insight that you have, because we all do that. Anybody that is in franchise marketing, and it's where you first build your relationship. Is this franchisee going to trust me or not? If I can do a good job of getting that grand opening, they're going to trust me in the other things I tell them to do when there's pivots in the marketing that needs to happen. So I'd love any input that you have.
Amy, are you referring to me? And
yes, yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I was just making sure. The point when I came into Self-Esteem Brands, it was a very mature, franchise. I think AF as a brand had been around for 17 or 18 years, and so that was a challenge, is how to take a legacy brand and continue to grow it. And fortunately, we were successful in it, because we had double-digit, same store year-over-year growth every year I was there. But it really relied on the owners that were the opening to really trust the tried and true methods, like it's almost like the carnage of what came before, all the mistakes that all the franchisees had before, and then the home office really packaging that up. But it was a combination of getting out there in the community, events, digital played a huge role, and of course your offer is the sweetest in the beginning. The same thing that we do on the cleaning side, or the cleaning service lines that we have at Voda. We want to get people to try us because we know that we're going to wow them and we're going to keep them as a customer through additional services over time. And so it's kind of the combination of like that promo to get them in the door. You show off the brand, show off the promise, and that's really what made franchisees successful in that franchise. But then also with Voda's, really understanding that you don't lose a customer in the first interaction. You lose them by not asking them for the second job or the second sale or recommending something because they're on to something else. And so I think the success is really in the follow-up, like everything we've talked about with automation and being able to touch those customers in different ways and gather information on them. Can you imagine how much more local and personal it is if you know that customer's dog's name and like their anniversary and all these things? That's exactly the type of things that we're injecting into our strategies to become a really close brand to these people that are where it's less transactional, it's more relationship based.
I think that's a great point. I think we're in the world of data right now, but if we don't leverage that data for human relationships, then we're failing. So sending anniversaries, asking about your kids, Amy. I think brands that are being intentional and sympathetic to their customers. For example, Mother's Day can be a really hard holiday for a lot of people. And so I think Open Table sends an email that says, if you want to unsubscribe for Mother's Day, we'll resubscribe you right after. Being sensitive about those type of things, or in the pet industry, if you've lost a pet, sending a gift and condolences and making sure they don't get automations about your deceased dog afterwards. So making sure that your technology is working to benefit your relationships.
Yeah. Lindsay, didn't you have an example of like one that went awry related to weather?
Yeah, I think it's really important to know what's going on in the world. I think we get so caught up in automations. I have this example of a brand that was promoting an outerwear jacket and had this campaign built out 3 to 6 months in advance. Bless their heart, to have a marketing team that organized. And the automation went out to all customers worldwide with this incredible creative that said, Mother Nature hates you, buy your outerwear jacket now. And hit the East Coast when Hurricane Katrina hit, on the day of Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, no.
And it was one of those moments where we were too close to the campaign for someone to step in, cancel the automation, and know what's happening in the world, what's happening with weather, what's happening in different regions that might be affected by the messaging. And so I think maybe having second eyes on those kind of things, revisiting automations, making sure that you're not doing anything insensitive is really important.
Totally. We have a wild brand. It's wild. It just is. It's called Bio One, and they do crime scene cleanup and hoarding cleanup. And the franchisees have a dark sense of humor. I tell you, like, you have to kind of be in that industry, but sensitivity is critical. Unfortunately, it is a part of the culture and it's a part of how we look at the business. So I think we're less prone to making missteps like you would if it's like not a constant thing on it as you're weighing the strategies and ideas. But that brand has taught me just how important it is to be sensitive as well as just mindful of the customer's mindset when you're going through it. With bath or mosquito shield spraying, it's probably not as relevant, but I think to your point, Lindsay, it's always wise to be cognizant of what's going on in the news cycle, what's going on in the world, and that can actually strengthen our brands, strengthen our franchisee relationships.
And being able to pivot.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also really important to not only know who your customer is, but regionally understand how those customers differ, particularly in channels. So doing the research to understand that that 30-year-old woman in Florida is going to consume your digital ad or your social that you're making in a different place than someone who is up in Boston, and knowing that changes every few months, that changes. And so doing that research and staying up on that research so you are aware, so that you keep spending the money in the right place and those rotating things are happening. It's very easy on the franchise to just say, well, this is working because the number holistically over the franchise is working, instead of really looking at the regionality of how and how much it changes. How many people, a poor TikTok or a poor Instagram, depending on what state you live in. It's crazy, but true.
So true. Well, we're going to wrap up today. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you all so much for joining. I think you can find all 4 of us on LinkedIn if you guys want to reach out. And thank you, Promo Republic. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, a happy spring, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks all.
See you.